All right, so I think today what I plan on doing is going back and revisiting some of the code we wrote last time. There's in particular one method that we modified that I just didn't particularly like how it looked. Let me go ahead and open that up now. And then after we do that, I think what I'll do is I'll continue building out the different options that we have for pulling in, like the option values for our select dropdowns. Let's see your pages, status. So last time we got this manual way of adding options built, and then today I want to see if we can get these two options in, or at least this one. This one's more important, I think. So yeah, so we'll start with revisiting the method that we wrote. So what we did was we needed a way to allow certain values or certain keys in our array to be allowed when we're trying to kind of like filter out an array. And last time we were the values that we were trying to save was an array, and so we needed to allow those arrays to be saved in our database. So what that looks like here, let me connect to my database. I think it's actually named this one. Module fields. And so you'll see here that the option values contains a subarray. And before we weren't able to allow that to happen, but with this new way of allowing like this asterisk character, we allow the data to save like a subarray. And so we added a little check here. So if the key that we're checking in the multidimensional array, if it ends with an asterisk, then we go ahead and allow, we save that value in our resulting array. So we allow that value to be saved. And then we kind of continue on because we don't have to do all the other checks. But what I don't like about this is that it's almost like duplicated. So you'll see here that result key equals value is the same as what our end result is. So I want to see if we can refactor this to where it maybe makes a little more sense and kind of follows the flow of our method here. So I think, okay, so what we're doing here, we're just checking if the key is not allowed, and if it's not allowed, then we continue because we don't want to save that. And then what we're doing here is if it's an array, we're just passing it recursively to this method because we need the method to check all the subarrays if it's a multidimensional array. So I'm wondering here, in array. Okay, so I think what we can do is instead of checking if this asterisk key is in the allowed, I think we'll do the opposite. We'll check if it's not in there, and if it's not in there, we'll just continue because it won't be allowed. So I'll go ahead and cut this out here, and then we'll add it after this is array check. This may not work because our value is an array. But I think it will actually, because once it gets to this point where the actual values won't be an array, and so I think it should be allowed. So let's go ahead and try this. So if not in array, parent allowed result key equals value. So let's go ahead and test this out. I think we have this sample page here that we can test in our controller. We're going to go ahead and die dump the resulting values, just so we can see what the data is. So on this update method, we'll just go ahead and die dump this, and then we'll go back here and save this form. And yes, I think as I suspected, this did not work because it's catching this is array method and passing it over to the array only dot recursive function, and then it's just not actually getting here. But I just kind of want to see. I just want to dump the full key just to see what it looks like as it's iterating through all those values. Okay. So okay. I wonder if we can actually just move this up here. Maybe that'll work. Yep, that seems to work. Okay, and I think that's fine because if we're doing something like this where we're allowing an asterisk, then we're expecting that the value of that data field is just going to be an array. We just want to save all the values that are in it. We don't necessarily need to continue down the line and check all the sub array fields, because our asterisk is kind of telling us, hey, we're just saving everything that's in there. So I think that's fine. So I think that looks a little better. Let's go ahead and remove this temporary code. Refresh, just test this out again just to make sure everything's working. Add 4, remove 3, save. Okay, it looks good. All right, so that's really all I wanted to do. I just kind of wanted to refactor that real quick. I think I'm way happier with that than before. The other thing here is I was looking at the key that we were using in our view component. And someone mentioned in the chat last time that using the index for the key sometimes causes problems. And I think I've seen that before, but I don't know that I'm able to reproduce it. Yeah, like I haven't seen a problem with it yet. Let me just do a quick Google search to see if there's any information about that. Use index as key. For simple arrays that have single item non-object values. For fruit and fruits. This is interesting. We can use like just create like a string key using the index. That might work for us. Let's see what VJS has to say about this. To give you a hint so that I can track each node's identity and thus reuse and reorder existing elements, you need to provide a unique key attribute for each item. It is recommended to provide a key attribute with v-for whenever possible unless the iterated DOM content is simple or you're intentionally relying on the default behavior for performance gains. The key also has uses other than specifically to not use primitive values like objects and arrays for the v-for keys. It doesn't mention anything about not using the index. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep that. I think if I notice any issues in the future, I'll go ahead and change it, but it looks like there isn't any issues with it for now. And the other issue that we came across was I wasn't sure if I wanted to allow like to have this option where you can just save anything as a subarray, because it can cause issues, because here we're kind of assuming that the array that will be saved, it'll just be like one-dimensional, like it won't have sub properties. But then if somebody were to somehow maliciously add some data here that that would be like a subarray, which actually, let me see if I can demonstrate that. So let's say we did something like that, where we created a subarray and then did that. If we saved it, what would that look like? Yeah, it seems to mess up our data here. Yeah, so I mean, it gets saved, which is good, but things get messed up here. So that is an issue that I'll need to figure out and fix. I don't have like a good way to fix that off the top of my head. So for now, I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna keep it noted, and then as I'm like going throughout my day, I'm usually kind of thinking about this stuff. And so if I find a good solution, I'll go ahead and implement it. The other thing is, like, I don't want to get too in the weeds right now with me building these things out, because really my main goal is to kind of get like a working functional app, something that works, and mainly so I can see all the different components and how they're going to work together. And then, like, once I kind of see that in my app and I'm able to kind of work through all these different pieces that work together, I'll be able to kind of go back and refactor and fix things. Like, chances are I may not even be using this controller in this code by the end of my project. So yeah, so that's why I note these things down, like any issues that come across, but I'm not too like eager to try to fix every issue that I come across, just because, yeah, like I was saying, I'm not even sure that we're going to keep some of this code. I want to kind of stay on the path of building the application and kind of creating the features, rather than focusing too much on the code, because really the code is secondary. What we're looking for is a working application. So yeah, so I'll revisit that in the future, maybe, if we need to. But yeah, so now what I want to do is I want to continue building out these different options. So here we have, we got this option set up where we can manually allow a user to enter option values. And then what I want to do is I also want to be able to dynamically pull options from another model. So I guess in a sense, it may even kind of function as like a belongs to field, where, you know, we have something similar where when you're creating a page, we have this parent field, and this parent field is belongs to kind of relationship to the page. So it's kind of like that, but I don't really want, like, I want to be able to create a select dropdown without having that relationship necessarily with the with the model. So I just want to be able to fill out these drop down options from any of the other dynamic modules that we build out. So yeah. So let's go ahead and look at our view here. So this will be under module fields, form fields, and so yeah, right now I'm just kind of I'm just having this one big view that has all the different options. It's not going to stay this way. This is a lot, and a lot of it can kind of be broken down into their own separate views. But kind of like I was saying earlier, like my goal is to kind of try to build out all the different fields, all the different features, and then once I kind of see everything that I'm working with, like it's much easier to go back and refactor and move things to their own files and things like that. Like I don't want to be like prematurely refactoring or optimizing my code. So here's where we have the different options, and here's where we're entering the option values manually. So what I'm thinking is, so I guess what I'll do is I'll create just a new card here for the dynamic option settings. Let's call it dynamic options for now. So it's going to be here. Eventually what we're going to do is we want these to the visibility to be kind of toggled based on the options that you select, but for now they'll just all be visible. And then in here what we want is we probably want select drop down dynamic options. So we want a few different settings when you choose this dynamic option. So one, you need to select the module that you're trying to pull the data from. So that's going to tell us where the data is going to come from, and then of course we're going to want what's going to be displayed as the name of the, like which field we'll use for the name. So what's going to be displayed here to the user, and so that's going to be another setting that we're going to have to pull in. I think also we're probably going to want to have some kind of options for sorting, like how do we want to sort these different options. And then ideally we'd also want a way to filter them. So you may want to display certain options from your module, but you may not want to display all of them. So ideally we want to have that. I'm not sure if we're going to get to the sorting and the filtering today. I think for now I want to kind of build out the module and selecting the module and the name field. And then eventually we can kind of get to the filtering and the sorting. All right, so I think what I'll do first, I'll just kind of build out the the HTML for the different options. So let's see here. I think what I'll do for the module is it's going to be like a select drop down. Div.form group. And I'm going to have a label for module. All right, and then here we're gonna have to pull those in dynamically, and then we're gonna have a label for the name field. I'll just call it name field for now. And that's also probably going to be a select drop down. All right. And so these are actually going to be dynamically pulled based on the module that you select. So what I'm seeing here is we'll probably want to move this over to like a view component because of the dynamic nature of this. So like we're going to have to pull the modules. I mean, we could either pull it in like initially when this page loads, or we can pull it in dynamically through an API. But what I'm thinking here is like a view component is good, but the thing is with a view component, I'm going to have to create like API routes for at least we have to create the API routes to get all the fields for the module. And I'm not sure I really want to do that for such a simple component. So I think what I want to do is I think I'll actually want to use Livewire. And for those of you that are not familiar with Livewire, Laravel Livewire. So what this lets us do is create these dynamic components, but we don't have to create any like Ajax APIs. Livewire will kind of take care of hydrating the data for us, and all we have to do is kind of just write a blade template. So I kind of liked it for simple things like this, and just kind of makes it easier. I don't think that I've pulled this into our project yet. Let me check my composer.json. Yeah, I haven't pulled it in, so we're gonna have to go through and just install it real quick. And now that we've installed that, we have to include the Livewire styles and scripts to our template. And so I think we're using admin LTE, so it'll be under the vendor styles here. So we're going to put the styles in the head. And I'm wondering if the head is probably in the master template here. So let me just look real quick here to see what the views look like. Is that the right one? I think I forgot what the name of the package is. Oh, it's this Jero. I see load views. Where's it loading the views from? Resources views. Okay. Resources views. Master. In the master, there's the head. Oh, so it looks like it already supports Livewire. Okay. So it looks like we don't have to actually do anything. So there's the Livewire styles that our template is pulling in, and then there's the Livewire scripts. Okay, that's cool. That makes it easier. So we don't have to do that, and then let's go ahead and just create a component. So we can use this PHP artisan command. And what should we call this? I'm just going to call it like select drop down dynamic options. I just don't know what the what's the naming conventions for these. Is it kebab case? Or is it select dynamic options? Okay, yeah, that's fine, that's good. We won't show love right now. All right, and then that should automatically generate a Livewire component for us. So here we see it generated one. I'm just going to put something here. Hello, select dynamic options, just so we can test that it's working. And then so once that's created, I think it also creates a, it should create like a class for us. Yeah, app HTTP Livewire select dynamic options. That just returns a view, so that's fine. And then we just need to display that component in our app. So I guess the way we do that is Livewire colon and then the name of the component. So I'm just going to do it here in the card body. Livewire select dynamic options. Okay, let's refresh and see if that loaded in. Yep, there we go. That loaded in. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out, and we will paste it into our component. And I think, yeah, that's fine. I'm wondering, does Livewire require one root element, kind of like a view? Livewire root element. So here it says it looks like you have to have one root element. Okay, that's fine. We'll just keep one root element and then have those in there. All right, so there's loading. And so now what we need is we need to pull in some data. So for this module, we have to be able to pull all the different dynamic modules that are created. So here I just kind of have some test modules here, and yeah, so when our component initially loads, it's going to need to have that data in it. So we'll go ahead and close out some of these files, and if we go here to our class that renders our component, we can include some data here. And the way we include data is, I believe we just set it as public properties in the class. So let's just test that out. Let's do public foo equals bar. And then I think with any luck, we should be able to use foo in the template. Yep, that worked. All right, so that's good, but the thing is we need to pull in this data dynamically. So I'm guessing we would do that in the render function. So we're gonna have public modules. Actually, by default, we'll make it an array. And then right before we render the component, we're gonna do this, modules is equal to module order by name get. I just want to check, I believe that's the name of the field, its name. Yep, name. All right, so now that we have those in there, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and just render those out. All right, so that's being pulled in correctly. I'm going to close that, and then here we're going to do at for each modules as module. The value we need to make that the ID of the module, and then the name of it would be module name. All right, with any luck, we should see those. Yep. And usually I like to have like an empty option here just so that there isn't a default. And then what we want to do is when the module is selected, what we have to do is we have to pull all the fields for that module. So all these different dynamic fields, we have to pull them in and add them as options here in this dropdown. So I know Livewire has a way to do two things. It has a way to, I think, model data. So just like Vue, you can do like a V model to a property, and you can also have it watch for events. So what we're going to need a property here for the selected module. Actually, we'll just call it selected module, so it's a little more clear. And I believe, how do you model? How do you model data binding? That's what we're looking for. So wire model message. Wire model equals selected module. And then what I want to do is I just kind of want to here just echo selected module, just so we can make sure that it's working. Maybe wrap that in a div. All right, select the module is empty. Let's go ahead and change that. That did not update. What am I doing incorrectly? Selected module, that's correct. Wire model, that looks correct. Oh, I wonder, do we have to? No. Should be fine. Let me just check here in the network to see if it's actually passing that data over. Doesn't look like it is. So what are we doing incorrectly? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna try a little text input field. Let's just do it at the top. Yeah, just a text input field, just so I can see if it's just working with the simple text field. Wire model text, and then we'll just render this text out in a div text. Let's try that. It's not working. I wonder if our scripts, our Livewire scripts, are not being pulled in. Yeah, I think that's the issue. We have to go back and look at our. So our admin LTE is supposed to be pulling in those scripts and styles for Livewire automatically, but it's doing it on a conditional. So I need to check what that conditional is. So if so if config admin LTE.livewire, so we need to I guess we need to enable that configuration there. Admin LTE Livewire. Okay, yep. Now with any luck, I think it might work. No? Huh. Okay, so it's outputting Livewire styles. Is it cache? There we go. Yeah, it was some cache. All right. There we go. Now that's working. Cool. So let's go ahead and remove this little test thing that we did. And I think with any luck, this should work. Yep, perfect. And so, yeah, that's rendering as the, that's showing the ID of the module because if you remember, we set the value for each option to be the ID of the module. So that's good. So, yeah. So now that we have the selected module populating, we need to remove this temporary variable that we added. We have to also pull in the options for these for this name field dropdown. So I think what I'll do is this fields will be equal to, well, so we need a module. We need to know what module we're working with. So you know what I'll do by default, fields will just be an empty array, and then we will have module is equal to, well, we want to wrap it in conditional. So if this selected module will be equal to module find this selected module, and then we probably want to do another conditional here. Probably clean this up later. If module, then this fields will equal to module fields get. And then what I'll do here also is I will just output the fields. Right, I think we need to make that a property here. So this fields, actually, what we can do is set that to an empty array there, remove this. All right, that's a little better. And I think what's happening here is because it's a bunch of models, just giving us that little error. All right, so let's go ahead and try and test this out. Yep, so as we change the selected module, we see that our fields here get updated based on what's selected here. So that's good. It's good that it's working. And so now we can just go ahead and populate this with that data. So for each fields as field, and for each we're going to have an option value is going to be the field ID, and the name is going to be the field name, of course. All right, so now with any luck, yep, there we go. So pages, we're pulling the fields from the pages module. Setup fields, we're pulling the fields from that module, and so on. That's good, that's working. All right, so let's go ahead and remove this little temporary code here and see if we can save these settings into our database. So in order to do that, we need to go into our controller and we have to allow those new settings that we just added. So add allowed fields. So it'll be options dot, what are we naming these? Maybe we'll name it like dynamic options dot module. Probably do that. Dynamic options dot name field. I guess that works. think naming things is probably the hardest thing in programming. So dynamic options dot module, duplicate that, dynamic object options dot name field. All right, so let's go ahead and save this. So module pages, and maybe just do title for the name field, save. It's not going to show this just yet because we haven't had it populate the old or the existing data yet, but let's go ahead and check the database. And I think what we can do, so last time I was trying to figure out how we can find a record by the ID, and it's actually pretty easy. You just pass in the ID there, and there we go. Filters it by the ID. So options type model, so that got saved, but options, oh right, so we allowed these keys here to be saved, but we haven't actually updated the name of our select dropdowns. So I just need to reference how we're doing this here. Yeah, so we just have it right here, options, dynamic options module. We'll have the ID for now. And then same thing here. Instead of module, we're going to have name field. Pages, title, save. Let's check our database again. Yep, there we go. So that's the ID of the module, and then that's the ID of the name field. So I'm kind of wondering how we're going to link those to the actual module. I don't know if we can use like a Laravel relationship or eloquent relationship, but won't worry about that for now. Save that. And then before we go out building it, I do want to get these select dropdowns to show what the saved fields are. So let's see here. So what we're going to need, because we're including this component here, we're going to need access to the field that we're editing. I don't think it's included by default, like you would expect with like a Laravel, like when you include like a Laravel view. I think we actually have to pass in the field to our component. So I just kind of want to look this up real quick. Yeah, so at Livewire, okay, so it's kind of like using the view syntax here. All right, so what we need to do is we need to pass the field that we're editing. So field is equal to field. So it looks like we don't even need to it doesn't need to be like in like the blade echo curly braces. Let's try that. And I think we actually have to is that what we need to do? I think, yeah, I think we will need to set the public property. Let's go ahead and do that. Public field is equal to, well, just be equal to null. And then now let's just make sure that that field is coming through. Just do field name, or let's do field ID. Yep, so that's coming through, so that's good. All right, so the reason we did that is so that we can set the default selected value here. So we will check for the old options.dynamic options.module, and the default value will be field option dynamic options.module. Will that work? That did not work. Let's see here if, let's see here what the field option here is, the value of that. Okay, so we are getting that value here. Oh, right. That's what's happening. For select dropdowns, we have to render selected here. So if the old or the field option is equal to module ID, then we echo out selected, else just nothing. All right, so that still didn't work. So I see selected. Okay, so that's what's wrong. Right, so I think what's happening is because we're using a live wire, modules. So if the old options module, field option dynamic options on modules equals module ID selected. What am I doing wrong? Is it because of this? Yes, I forget. All right. So because we're using live wire, it's modeling our property selected module. So instead of that, we actually have to update our selected module based on the field that we pass in here to our component. So what I want to do is I just want to die dump the field just to make sure that we're getting this, that this field is not empty when we get to this render function here. So that looks good. And then based on that field, we want to populate this selected module. So this selected module is equal to this field option dynamic options.module. All right, so now that's working. And then, you know what, I want to go ahead and try updating it just to, I think what we have to do is we have to remove this real quick. Remove that. Okay, now it's tripping out. All right. I wonder, okay, so I haven't used LiveWire too much, so I think what's happening here is, yeah, we're overriding that selected module. So we need to figure out how do we preserve it. I believe, as far as I remember, LiveWire, I think it allows old input here. So dynamic options dot no, that just seems wrong. Here, I got to reference docs. Dirty states, what's that? Repopulate fields in form from old. Well, let's see here. What is the value of this old property here? That's null, but what we want to test is what it is when we change it. Let's go on our network. It's still null. Try removing that, see what happens. Oops. I think I'm probably not understanding how Livewire uses these data binding models. What's this? Okay. Let's see here. Quick start. Making components, rendering components, properties, binding data. So wire model parent.message, that's good. Deferred updating. Binding directly to model properties. Okay. Looks like you can add some rules. I wonder if maybe it shouldn't be in the render method. Maybe there's another method it needs to be part of, just like the first time that it renders this component. Lifecycle hooks, this is what I'm looking for. Yeah, so I think we probably have to move it out of the render because we don't want it to set that default value every time the component renders, because the component renders every time you make a change, it makes a network request with Livewire, and then it comes back with the new component. So we only want this to happen when it's mounted, I believe. I'm not sure, but I'm going to try it. So does this need to be public function mount? And instead of old, what I'll do is I'll do this field option dynamic options dot module. All right, so that's working. That's good. It's not switching on us anymore. And then we also got to make sure that it saves the, well, before we do that, let's make sure that it's pulling both the module and the name field. So this, so we don't actually have a property yet for our name field. So we will create a new one, wire model, name field, public name field is going to be null. So this name field is going to be this field option dynamic options dot name field. And then, yeah, so that's working. That's good. Let's just go ahead and just try updating it to something else. That's good. Let's try a different module. That's good. All right, and then the last thing I want to make sure that we do is that we preserve the old input. So if we have some kind of validation error, we want to make sure that whatever was selected gets preserved. Because I think right now, if we, like let's say we change it to pages title and we leave name empty, it goes back to the saved original value. So I believe we can do that by just passing the old value here. So we'll do old options.dynamic options.module. Copy that. Old options.dynamic. Oh, can't type. Options.name field. It should be plural there, and then we want to paste in the original field value. All right, so let's try this again. We'll leave the name field empty, change this to pages title, save. All right, and it's still preserving that old input, so that's good. So let's go ahead and just put the name back in, click save, and that's getting saved correctly. All right, so this portion of this field is working now. So now what we need to do is make sure that whenever we have this option selected, that it uses these dynamic options instead of these manual options that you could enter in. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to where this pages module is being displayed. You'll see here right now it's pulling these manually entered options, even though our setting here is set to dynamically pull it. So we're gonna have to go in there and change that. So go ahead and close some of this stuff out. So resources, views, admin, modules, fields. It's not form field. This is actually the module models here, fields, and then we need to find the select field here. So right now, these options are coming from those manually entered options. So what we need to do is figure out how to pull those options based on that configured value there. And I think what I'll do for simplicity's sake is I'll probably actually just add some like PHP here, just so we can set a variable for the drop-down options. Yeah, and so what we'll do is we'll just check the setting here, the value of that setting, and then we're going to pull those options and set that that options variable to that, to, you know, whatever, like pull those options wherever we need to pull them from. So what we'll do is, I think we'll just have an options variable, I should just make it a collection. And then we're just going to have some if statements for now. So if the field, okay, this is not add if, this is regular PHP. If the field option for, I forgot the name of this, options type, so if that's equal to manual, our options is going to be equal to what we're currently displaying here. And so let's just go ahead and just test this out. Yeah, this is just red just because we have some PHP here in the blade template, and I don't think PHP Storm doesn't really know how to interpret that correctly, but that field is being passed from the parent view. And so here, instead of doing at for each, instead of pulling those options from that field option there, the field setting, what we'll do is at for each options as option. And what we're going to need is, so for each option, we need to know what the value is going to be, and we need to know what the name is going to be. So with these simple options, our value was just the name of the option, but for other types of options, we're going to have to set those dynamically. Oh, what's up, Deshaun? Glad to have you. So I think what I'll do first is I'm going to leave it as is, and just to make sure that it's pulling these options correctly. So I think if we okay, so what we need to do is we have to update that setting, save that module, refresh. So that's still pulling those in correctly. And then we're going to add another if statement for another option type. So I think the name of this one was dynamic. And for this one, we're going to have to pull those from the module. So the module is going to be module find field option dynamic options.module, and then the once we have the module, then we want to pull the options from the fields. Well, no, we want to pull the options from the module models, but the name of the option is going to be the field that we select here, the name field. So I think what I'll do is I'll just do a simple iteration for each module, models as model. And what we can do is just populate our options. So the key is going to be, for now I'm just going to make the key the ID, the model ID, and then the name of it, it's going to be the name of the of that setting. So module field option dynamic options dot name field. All right, and then what we're gonna have to do is here we want to update this so as option key points to the option value. Well, let's mix option name. Let's call it that. Let's do option value here. Option value. And then the option name is what we're rendering. so let's go ahead and change that to dynamically pull from a model, and then refresh this. And that's not pulling anything. Is it displaying anything? Nope. Module find. Okay, I just want to die dump this just to see if we're actually pulling it in. Maybe that key is wrong. Select dynamic options. What I'm trying to do, I need to find the key that we used for that configuration. So modules, fields, form fields, option values. Okay, it's here. So I actually used model. I think I'm going to change that to dynamic, which makes a little more sense. And also just change these labels. All right, I'm just gonna have to go back here and save this again since we changed the name of the key. All right, so it looks like it's pulling something, but it's not pulling in the name correctly. So, okay, that's the problem here. We need to use model, not module. Nope, still not working. Options, model ID is the model field option dynamic options dot name field. Okay, so the problem here is that we're saving the name field as the ID of the field. So what we have to do is we have to get that field, and we actually have to get like the key of that field to access on the model, because when the model is saved, it's saved as like text fields here, and not the ID. So what we have to do is we have to find the field that we're using. So there's the field. No, we have to. So module fields, find that field, and then from that field, we need to get the key, the field key. I believe it's just key, but let me just double check. Yeah, get key attribute. We just kind of generate like a slug from the name of the field. Okay, I think fields here. This is a relationship. All right, there we go. So now these options are actually being pulled dynamically from our pages. So you'll see here, our pages have all these models. So that's where it's pulling this data from. And so if we went ahead and changed that to another module, for example, setup fields has a few, although it doesn't really have any good data. How about testing fields? It doesn't really have any good data. Well, let's just use setup fields as an example. Use address. Create a new page. Okay, yeah, I suspected that would happen. So this is still something where we haven't fleshed out, but this address field is like an object, and so it's trying to render that object as a string, which of course is failing. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and edit this module and add like a new field for name. This is just going to be a text field. Save that. And so instead of using the address field as the field name, we're going to use the name field. And then I just want to update a few of these to add the name. Okay, so let me remove the address field, just because that was like a work in progress. I don't think I completed it, so I think it's causing us issues. Delete that. We have name. Okay, that's good. Test 2, test 3, test 4, and test 5. All right, now if we go back to pages, add a new one, we'll see that it's pulling these from that module. So that's pretty cool, because now we can have these options being pulled dynamically from any module that we create. Really, really cool. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. Let me just make sure that it's saving that correctly. Yep, that's good. I think. Okay, so something's weird there. Why is it title is title? Okay, I think I know what's going on. We're overriding this variable, this field variable, so we just have to rename that to something else. And I think we're gonna have to do the same thing for the module as well. And then we'll name this, I don't know, options module. I mean, this stuff may not stay. I like doing it here because it's so simple and it's right there, right in the component. We'll probably move this over to like a controller in the future, but I just don't know what that's going to look like yet. And like I was saying before, I don't want to like prematurely refactor a lot of this code. So let's go ahead and try this again. Test dynamic options. There's some required fields we have to fill out, and then set that to another page. Test dynamic options. Okay, got saved correctly, and that got saved correctly as well. Let's test the update method as well. All right, that worked. So that's good. So that kind of gets like the core functionality working. Like I was saying before, we probably want to add some way to sort those. So right now, I think it's just pulling those in based on the just kind of like default sorting method. So no particular way that it's sorting it yet. So it would be nice, like if you want to sort it alphabetically, or if there was like another way that you want to sort by, or maybe you even want to sort it by another field. So that would be kind of nice to have. And also filtering them as well. So maybe you don't actually want to display all of the module models here. So yeah, just be nice if there's a way to filter those out. But we're not going to do those quite yet. The other thing too is we want validation. So we want to make sure that the selected option here matches one of those required, or one of these options that are available. So, so someone can't just go in here and just, update the value here, set it to whatever they want. We want to make sure that it's actually valid input. So those are kind of three things that we'll probably have to work on. I think what I'll do is, this was kind of my main goal. My main goal is to kind of get this working for today. So that's probably where I'll end off for now. And then I think in the next stream, we'll go ahead and maybe try implementing some of these other features here. So yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. Yeah, subscribe to my YouTube just so you can kind of be aware when I'm streaming next. And yeah, if you have any suggestions, any comments, feel free to leave them in the video description or in the Reddit thread or on Twitter. So yeah, happy to have all you guys.